Good morning. If you like, you can stand and join me for number 126, Come Thou Font of Every Blessing, in the gray hymnals, or it's on the screen there. Come thou font of every blessing, tune our hearts to sing thy grace. Streams of mercy never ceasing, call for songs of loudest praise. While the hopes of life's perfection fill our hearts with joy and love, teach us ever to be faithful, may we still thy goodness prove. Come thou font of every vision, lift our eyes to what may come. See the lion and the young lamb dwell together in thy home. Hear the cries of warful silent, feel her love glow like the sun. When we all serve one another, then our heaven is begun. Come thou font of inspiration, turn our lives to higher ways. Lift our gloom and desperation, show the promise of this day. Help us bind ourselves in union, help our hands tell of our love. With thine aid, O fount of justice, earth be fair as heaven above.
Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Universalist Church of Spokane. We're glad to have you with us at UUCS. We appreciate your unique background, beliefs, or lifestyle. If you're one of our longtime members or have been here a short time or you're here for the very first time, we're glad to have you with us. We also appreciate those of you streaming or Zooming our services. It is our mission to join together to create a nourishing, liberal religious home and to champion justice, diversity, and environmental stewardship in the wider world. Or in short, to create community, find meaning, and work for justice. Welcome to everyone. I have just one announcement. I think it's just to thank you for all of those who participated in the auction that raised money for our church. I think it ended last week. So thank you very much. I am your lay leader, Lisa Conger, and Zooming with us this morning is our guest speaker, Dr. Terry Anderson. I will more formally introduce him prior to his presentation. So the Zoomers, would you like to introduce yourselves?
Well, we have about 13, 14 Zoomers at the moment. I don't know, I think there may be some folks who may be joining us for the first time. If so, would you say hello to the sanctuary? Is anybody new, or everyone has been here before? Our group is increasing rapidly at the moment, so we now have about 16 people.
Great. Well, welcome to all of you. So please take a few moments now to greet one another and connect. Be sure to say hello to someone you haven't met yet.
We can all unmute for a few minutes and let's see that.
Thank you. You'll have more time following the service to share stories and get to know one another over coffee or tea. We now turn from our informal greeting of one another to formally begin our service by lighting our chalice, the symbol of Unitarian Universalism, the symbol of our unity and solidarity, of our openness and inclusion, of our community and individual uniqueness. May this small flame be our offering of warmth to those who are cold and alone, and a light to those in darkness. May it be a flame that ignites justice in our world, and a beacon of hope to those in need. And may it reflect at least a spark of truth wherever truth has been lost. Since building community is the theme of this morning's presentation, I'm going to share this beautiful poem by Naomi Shihab Nye that speaks just to that, forming a community. You will pardon any of my mispronunciations, I hope. Wandering Around an Albuquerque Airport Terminal by Naomi Shihab Nye. After hearing my flight was detained 4 hours, I heard the announcement. If anyone in the vicinity of Gate 4A understands any Arabic, please come to the gate immediately. Well, one pauses these days. Gate 4A was my own gate. I went there. An older woman in full traditional Palestinian dress, just like my grandma wore, was crumpled to the floor, wailing loudly. "Help," said the flight service person. "Talk to her. What is her problem? We told her the flight was going to be 4 hours late, and she did this." I put my arm around her and spoke to her haltingly. "Shu doa, shu bidak, habiti, stani shwe, min fadlik, shobitsiwi." The minute she heard any words she knew, however poorly used, she stopped crying. She thought our flight had been canceled entirely. She needed to be in El Paso for some major medical treatment the following day. I said, no, we're fine. We'll get there, just be late." "Who is picking you up?" "Let's call him and tell him." We called her son, and I spoke with him in English. I told him I would stay with his mother till we got on the plane and would ride next to her on Southwest. She talked to him. Then we called her other sons, just for the fun of it. Then we called my dad, and he and she spoke for a while in Arabic and found out, of course, they had 10 shared friends. Then I thought, just for the heck of it, why not call some Palestinian poets I know and let them chat with her? This all took about 2 hours. She was laughing by then, telling about her life, answering questions. She had pulled a sack of homemade mamoul cookies, little powdered sugar crumbly mounds stuffed with dates and nuts, out of her bag, and was offering them to all the women at the gate. To my amazement, not a single woman declined one. It was like a sacrament. The traveler from Argentina, the traveler from California, the lovely woman from Laredo, we are all covered with the same powdered sugar and smiling. There is no better cookie. And then the airline broke out the free beverages from huge coolers, non-alcoholic, and the 2 little girls for our flight, one African-American, one Mexican-American, ran around serving us all apple juice and lemonade, and they were all covered with powdered sugar too. And I noticed my new best friend, by now we were holding hands, had a potted plant poking out of her bag, some medicinal thing with green furry leaves. Such an old country traveling tradition. Always carry a plant, always stay rooted to somewhere. And I looked around that gate of late and weary ones and thought, this is the world I want to live in, the shared world. Not a single person in this gate, once the crying of confusion had stopped, has seemed apprehensive about any other person. They took the cookies. I wanted to hug all those other women too. This still can happen anywhere. Not everything is lost.
Thank you. That was beautiful. If you like, you can stand for the next song, Song of the Soul, and it's in your order of service and also on the screen. Love of my life, I am crying, I am not dying, I am dancing, dancing along in the madness. There is no sadness, only a song of the soul, and we'll sing this song. Why don't you sing along, and we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing this song? Why don't you sing along, and we can sing for a long, long time. What do you do for your living? Are you forgiving, giving shelter? Follow your heart, love will find you, truth will unbind you. Sing out a song of the soul, and we'll sing this song. Why don't you sing along, and we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing this song? Why don't you sing along, and we can sing for a long, long time. Come to your life like a warrior, nothing will bore you. You can be happy. Let in the light, it will heal you, and you can feel you, and sing out a song of the soul, and we'll sing this song. Why don't you sing along, and we can sing for a long, long time. Why don't you sing this song? Why don't you sing along, and we can sing for a long, long time. And we can sing for a long, long time.
Thank you. Now we are going to light the candles of care. I have not received any notion of or any mention to me of someone that it needs our special care. But each time we gather as a congregation, there are always those who are with us in our minds and hearts and who we want to wrap in our love and care. We kindle light this morning for all those suffering in the war between Russia and Ukraine, and now tragically between Palestine and Israel. Let us share a moment in silence, embracing others who are here in our hearts this morning. You are welcome to say their names aloud as you are willing. Those named aloud and those remembered in the silence, and all those who are suffering elsewhere in our world at this hour, we hold them all in compassion. Thank you, Lynn. Our offertory this morning is a special collection for NAMI, the National Alliance for the Mentally Ill. NAMI is dedicated to empowering all those who have been affected by mental illness through advocacy, awareness, education, and support. NAMI Spokane envisions a world where all those impacted by mental health conditions know they are not alone and are empowered to live their most fulfilling lives. We offer hope and health for people who are experiencing mental health concerns and their families. today as we work to build a stigma-free tomorrow. And if you would like to contribute, use one of your envelopes here, but don't seal it because we reuse them. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. This morning's Time for All Ages story is something written by Reverend Naomi King, not to be confused with the poet Naomi Shihab Nye. Once there was a family of dogs. Unlike many dog families, there were dogs that had wandered off the street, and dogs with fine pedigrees, and dogs from the shelter, and dogs who had been born into the family. They ran together, they played together, they tumbled together in great furry masses of tails and snouts and paws. They loved each other very much, even if sometimes they growled at one another, even if sometimes they worried about enough biscuits from the tin on the counter. They loved each other very much. Each night as the moon rose, the family of dogs went outside and sat in a great circle on the soft grass and watched the moon rise and looked into each other's eyes and wagged their tails. It was a doggy thing to do. Then, when the moon was a dog's tail above the horizon, the eldest dog would bay loudly at the moon. And what do you think that dog was saying? The eldest dog was telling the other dogs and the moon and the whole world what he was thankful for. He was saying, "Thank you for this day, for the running and the jumping. Thank you for the biscuits and the tasty treats. Thank you, little brown dog, for nosing the ball my way. Thank you for being able to sing. Thanks for everything." Then the youngest dog would point her nose to the moon and begin to bay. And she was saying, "Thank you, wonderful sun that warmed my back. Thank you, pack of dogs, for wiggly dances. Thank you for the ringing ice cream truck." Then one dog after another would join in the baying, saying their thanks until they were singing together and to the moon. But they saved the best for last and howled together. "Thank you, mother, and thank you, father. Thank you, sister, and thank you, brother. Thank you, neighbor, and thank you, friend. Thank you, stranger, and thank you, world. We share our thanks for every being near and far, no matter who, no matter where, no matter what you are. Thank you." And they did this, no matter the weather, no matter how many or how few of the family was home, no matter how they felt. The dog family gathered together each and every night to greet the moon and share their thanks. So I'm going to ask all of you, grown-ups, right? Next service, there will be some kids in front of me, I think, but I'm going to ask all of you to join me in recreating the circle of the gratitude this morning. So just repeat after me. Thank you, Mother, and thank you, Father.
Thank you, Mother, thank you, Father.
Thank you, sister, and thank you, brother.
Thank you, sister, and thank you, brother.
Thank you, neighbor, thank you, friend.
Thank you, neighbor, thank you, friend.
Thank you, stranger, thank you, world.
Thank you, stranger, thank you, world.
We share our thanks for every being near and far.
We share our thanks for every being near and far.
No matter who, no matter where, no matter what you are. Happy Thanksgiving. I like that. Did you hear Madeline's beautiful baying to the moon?
This is the time in our service for meditation. Please find a receptive, comfortable position. Put your feet on the floor. Take some deep breaths. And I'll share these words from poet Emily Dickinson. All I know of love is all there is. All I know of love is all there is.
Good morning, everybody. I'm pleased to be able to sing something this morning. I don't know about all of you, but I have a little bit of a groggy throat here, so. The air is murky. There's smoke in the sky. The earth's temperature is not going down. The question's how long as we roll along can we ride on this merry-go-round? The earth in orbit smiles at the sun. A few humans are getting rich beyond dream, scooping out fossils, gassing the world as we're splitting apart at the seams. Will you be back from the fire next time? Or be gone like dust in the wind? Apart we fall, together we'll rise. Which way will you go, my friend? Native tribes meet to decide how their nation will carry on. with 7 generations in mind of the past and the ones to come. The time has come to draft everyone to help the planet survive. Gather round every daughter, every son, rally or run for your life. Will you be back from the fire next time? Or be gone like dust in the wind? Apart we fall, together we'll rise. Which way will you go, my friend? Think of the sages, clear-headed inventor, who labor to save our day. Just like the folks who come in this hall, voicing their songs of praise. No need to fear the fire next time, or be gone like dust in the wind. Apart we fall, together we'll rise. Which way will you go? Which way will you go, my friend?
Thank you, Pam. That was lovely. I am now going to introduce our guest speaker. He's not an invisible man, but he should be appearing on the screen shortly. Dr. Terry Anderson is a longtime Unitarian and is currently a member here at UUCS. Terry has led the current effort to add an interactive web conferencing component to the Spokane services and to help expand UUCS reach and services through the internet. Terry serves on the NAUA board and is currently their website manager. He retired as Professor Emeritus from Athabasca University in Canada. He and his wife Susan live in Edmonton, Alberta. Welcome, Terry.
Hey, well, thank you very much, Lisa, and I am really thrilled to be here this morning. It's an honor to be asked to speak from this historic pulpit in Spokane, although I must confess that the historic pulpit looks a lot like my study right now. But I hope that you'll appreciate this talk, because it's sort of made possible by the kind of technology that we've been sharing from Spokane for the last year, and thus it's really nice for me to be able to give back a little bit as well. I'm at the stage of my public speaking where I can't speak without PowerPoint slides, so I hope that you will be able to see them right now with the title slide there. And I'm going to begin with a poem by The Tuft of Flowers by Robert Frost. And I do this, begin for two reasons. The first is that when I was in my 20s, I followed the siren song of the Back to the Land movement and bought a quarter section in northern Alberta, and we lived there for over 10 years. And we raised ducks and rabbits. And one of the tasks I did each morning was to go out and to a field of clover and grass out near our house that I would cut a big basket full of hay for the animals, and I would use a scythe like this guy there. Now this is not a picture of me. I had way more muscles than this guy. But the poem sort of reminds me a bit of an introduction to my own past. But the biggest reason is because it's a beautiful poem, and it talks about a community of sorts that two people gather into, even though they never meet. And so I'll let Robert Frost tell you the poem. I went to turn the grass once after one who mowed it in the dew before the sun. The dew was gone that made his blade so keen before I came to view the leveled scene. I looked for him behind an aisle of trees. I listened for his whetstone on the breeze, but he had gone his way, the grass all grown, and I must be as he had been all alone. All must be, I said within my heart, whether they work together or apart. But as I said it, swift there passed me by, on a noiseless wing, a wildered butterfly, seeking with memories gone dim or night, some resting flower of yesterday's delight. And once I marked his flight go round and round, as where some flower lay withering on the ground. And then he flew as far as the eye could see, and then on tremulous wing came back to me. I thought of questions that have no answer, and would have turned to toss the grass, but he turned first and led my eye at a tall tuft of flowers beside a brook. A leaping tongue of bloom the scythe had spared, beside a reedy brook the scythe had bared. I left my place to know them by their name, finding them butterweed flower when I came. And I felt a spirit kindred to my own, so that henceforth I worked no more alone, but glad with him I worked as with, sorry, I've got my screen covered here, with his aid, and wearily sought it with him the shade. And dreaming, as it were, held brotherly speech with those whose thought I had not hoped to reach. All work together, I told him from the heart, whether they work together or apart. So what I'm going to talk about this morning is going to refresh the three souls of a speech I did 30 years ago at Westwood Unitarian called The Soul of Cyberspace. Then I'm going to talk about community and what it is and how you measure the value of a community. And then talk a little bit about my own work in distance education with the community of inquiry and how critically important it is to have social presence in online communications. And then talk about a little bit about our UU Spokane Zoom experiences, and end with a little bit of a theoretical piece on a community of worship model. So this was a talk I did in 1998, and it's fun to revisit it because you have to remember in 1998, a lot of us didn't have email. I did the newsletter, but it was all on paper and it went out through the mail. So things have changed a lot since then. But even in those days, I envisioned that there would be kind of three levels or three stages of the soul in cyberspace. And the first one I called What Time is Choir Practice? And that's where the web becomes a huge bulletin board. It has an archive of past things. It has the current organizational structure, the bylaws, the newsletters, kind of all of the stuff that supports a face-to-face congregation. And of course, the picture you see is UUCS. And I think Todd has told me more than once that there's so much stuff on that site, he can't find anything. But I keep reminding him that he would have a lot more trouble finding things if it wasn't on that site. So I think it's a classic example of how the internet works to support an online and a face-to-face community. And the second level is, are we meeting at the church or on Zoom? And I doubt if there's anybody in this audience who isn't on Zoom. Well, I know that who knows what it's like to have a video conference. And I doubt if there's a Unitarian congregation that doesn't have some kind of Zoom or video conferencing capabilities these days. So it's a kind of a question and or. And I'll tell you, all my years of proselytizing about virtual and online education, I had nowhere near the impact that COVID-19 had on it. So that, many of us had never dreamed that we would have an online conversation or meeting, are doing it quite naturally. And I think, as an example, the Freethinker Book Club that I've been running in Edmonton here for years, we always met face-to-face in the basement of Westwood Congregation. And then the pandemic came, so we shifted to online. And now, for the last 2 years, we talked about it, but we said, well, can't really see any point in going back to the church. We might as well just keep meeting on Zoom. So that's what we're doing. But not to suggest that there isn't value in meeting online, but you can do both, and that gives you your maximum flexibility. The third phase it didn't really exist back when I first started thinking about it, but it's the kind of thing, what if we have a virtual community where we never meet face to face and we don't have to bother with a building, or we just sort of have some sort of technology. And that technology is, right now it's like avatars, but certainly the metaverse, as it's come to be known, is growing all the time. And there's a number of churches that are in existence today that never meet face to face. And this is an evangelical one on Facebook's metaverse. And I haven't gone to a service, but I've walked around and read some of the Bible verses and sort of got a sense of what the community is like. So again, I'm not suggesting that any of those three is, a kind of a perfect solution, but you can see how the internet opens up the possibilities for our religious lives. So then it raises the question of, they're not the same. An online community is not the same as a face-to-face community, but is it good enough? And I think that's a question that we've been struggling with. And I threw in this quote from Jesus that, where 2 or 3 are gathered together in my name, I am there among them. Well, I don't think Christian theologians have really dealt with what this means in a virtual contract. Is Jesus there when you're online together? I don't know. So one of the important theories about this is by a guy called William Short, who talked about the clues filtered out. And his idea was that if you're in a mediated interaction, whether it's by telephone or video or audio or whatever it is, you're taking away body language, you're taking away maybe voice if it's just text-based, you're taking away all these filters, and that inevitably will impair communication between humans because, we've evolved with the senses that we have. The problem with that theory is it has a lot of intuitive strength and makes common sense, but there's a lot of examples where, and a lot of both in experimental results, have not borne this theory to be valid in all circumstances. And I give you an example. This is my pictures of my mother and my father. And they met in Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan in 1942, just after he had enlisted in the Canadian Army. And they went out for a couple of weeks, and then he got shipped to Europe. And he was there for almost 4 years. And their relationship developed incredibly. In fact, they became engaged, and all the clues that were filtered out. They had, of course, a time delay. They had no video or no pictures even. They also had the Canadian military censor reading these letters before they went across. But they really developed a strong relationship, as evidenced by the fact they got married as soon as they got home, and my older brother came along very shortly thereafter. So you can form a long-term positive relationships even with all of those filters, clues filtered out. So now I'm just going to spend a little bit of time talking, well, if I'm talking about an online community, what do we mean by the word community? And unfortunately, even in 1955, there was over 50 definitions of it. The one clear definition is an illusion. It doesn't exist. But one of the chief characteristics is that people define themselves as being members of that community. If you think you're a member of that community, you are a member of that community. That's why I feel like I'm a member of the Spokane community, even though I've only been there 2 weekends. So if you look at Oxford Dictionary definitions of community, you see these 4 kind of themes or threads. The first is just a group of people living in the same place. That would be the city of Spokane or any other geographic community. But you can also think of a community as people having a particular characteristic in common. Something like, the scientific community or the Canadian community or the liberal community or something like that. And then finally, we have diverse characteristics, but people are shared common social ties, common social perspective, and importantly, engage in joint actions. And I think that's our local congregations. And finally, there's a kind of a community in the sense that a feeling of fellowship with others as a result of sharing common attitudes, interests, and goals. And that would be all Unitarians globally, I think, fall under that sense of a community. Community is, as many other characteristics, it's linked both to a sense of the community and to the civic and political participation. If you don't act, you don't participate, then you're probably not a member of that community. And interesting, at least from a religious perspective, given the central role of ritual, is that rituals create and define communities. There's lots of research to suggest that those who are integrated into communities have better mental health outlooks and a sense of well-being. And finally, and probably as importantly, communities enhance building of social capital. That's the sense that people get to know you, they value you, they share things with you, they ask you for advice, they give you opportunities. Your personal power, if you like, is enhanced through participation in communities. And this is a quote from a UUA staffer, Reverend Sue Phillips, and she says, "There is no such thing as Unitarian Universalists by themselves. Our faith is practiced in covenanted community." Well, I'm almost choking on the word covenant these days, but nonetheless, I think you get the sense that it's very hard to be a Unitarian all alone. And most of us join some kind of congregation, even if it's something like the larger fellowship or an online community like we're enjoying on the Zoom side of the house here. And we are social animals. Community plays a pivotal role in human evolution. There's quite a bit of evidence that one of the major instigators of our large Homo sapien brains was because we needed a large brain to be able to communicate with each other and to build communities. And if you look, the community has it's grown and it changes and morphs in response to population growth and technology and climate change. But we've had hunter-gatherer clans, tribes, towns, countries, all connecting human beings. But communities are not all good. They can breed disinformation. You think of cults or Trumpites or flat earthers or conspiracy communities. But as well, they create and sustain energy and commitment to the causes that community is working for. So we've shifted from, we always shifted from traditionally being born into a community to now we get to choose the kind of communities and we express our identities through them. And you can see that it requires that affective, that caring for people through humans, recognizing other humans through relationship and through a shared identity. So for a large part, church is community. For many Unitarians, the local congregation is much more important than any regional or national denominational activities. And I've picked this up from all the discussions on the impending demise of the seven principles, and that there's many Unitarians who are just not aware that that's happening. Their ideas, I don't care what the UUA or the CUC does. I'm interested in supporting my community and my local congregation. But we're seeing a shift from Unitarians have been sort of a home place for human rights and for individual responsibilities and relationships. And now we're seeing a move to the community rights, economic benefits, responsibilities at the community level. We're going from a me to a we congregation, as I've heard some UUA spokesman phrase it. And that causes some challenges with us who are, brought up on the individual search for truth. So let me digress a bit. Now we know how valuable communities are, why didn't I come and share the community in Spokane? And you can see from the map that if I were to have driven, it would have cost me $400 and 20 hours of my time. I must say, though, that these are not real American dollars, those are Canadian dollars. But if I were to fly, it would take 14 hours because there are no direct flights, and $450. But I can Zoom for free without any carbon emissions. So that's some really compelling cases. Much as I would have liked to be in the sanctuary with you today. If we look at the cost of driving to or traveling to gather in community, you can see that passenger cars coupled with light trucks, pickup trucks, are over half of the global emissions. So it is a big challenge that we have to deal with. And one of the ways that I think it's my only internet claim to fame is that I ran and organized the world's first virtual conference in 1991. And I had been a director of a distance education network in Northern Ontario for a number of years. And one of the perks of that job was I got to go to the ICDE, the International Council of Distance Education's meetings every 2 years, and they'd be held somewhere around the world, and it was great fun, and met lots of colleagues that way. But then I resigned that job and was doing my PhD at the University of Calgary. And I had no money, and I had a young family, and there was no way I was going to go to Thailand to participate in the World Congress that was being held there. So I thought, well, why don't I have a virtual conference? And you must remember this was before the internet, but there was online communication. There was Usenet, Bitnet, NetNorth, FidoNet. There was a number of and lots of email lists. So what I did was I wrote an email to 5 of the biggest grand gurus in the distance education world, and I said, "Well, would you do a keynote for this virtual conference?" And none of them knew what a virtual conference was, so they all said yes. And the result was that they gave me some. They provided some a text base that we distributed, and then we talked about these papers for 2 weeks. And then, of course, I analyzed the transcripts and published a paper out of it that you see there. So another project that I did was 1994 with a grad student, but we looked at a conference. It was a conference for supporting deaf people, and it had been held face-to-face, but for whatever reason, the organizers decided to hold it virtually. And the year before, it had been held in London, England, and there were 200, and this year they held it online. I don't imagine they even had video in those days, but anyways, it was probably audio. I didn't attend, but they published the list of all the 251 delegates plus the addresses. And so a grad student and myself, we calculated how many tons of greenhouse gases were emitted by flying there and then taking the train in from Heathrow to London, and then staying in a hotel and eating restaurant meals. And, as best we could, we tried to calculate what was the cost in carbon outputs of this, what was the cost saved, rather, because the conference was held online. So if you look, here's a list of the of how much was saved, and obviously the people who flew, who came by air spent more greenhouse gases than the people who drove or took the train. But you can see quite substantial savings in one 3-day conference. And if you see globally, I'm a little embarrassed that Canada is so high, but it's only because of our cold weather, but not. You can see what percentage, and that's like 10% in one 3-day conference, even of Canada and the United States. And if you look at a global average, it's over a third of what the average global citizen spends in a year was spent by these delegates flying to attend face to face. So I guess the point of those slides was just to suggest that there is, a cost to meeting face to face, and it may well be worth that cost in many situations, but it's not something that we can continue to ignore. And virtual communities have been around for a long time, and Howard Rheingold, the guy who started the Whole Earth Catalog and ran one of the very first online communities called A Well out of San Francisco. And he defined virtual community as aggregations that emerge from the net when enough people carry on public discussions long enough with sufficient human feeling to form webs of personal relationships in cyberspace. But I'm not suggesting that these virtual communities are without problems. We have lots of problems with anonymity, as you don't know who that person is, and are they who they say they are? Are they, impersonating someone else, or making a bunch of lies? Or it's very hard to know, and especially when we allow completely anonymous participation. There's lots of records of antisocial behavior, Zoom bombing, and other, ways that people do not act appropriately in the social community. But I must say, in educational communities that I'm most familiar with, and in religious communities, this does not happen very often. In fact, all my years of teaching online, I never had a single incident of antisocial behavior in a paid graduate class. And then there's also worries about freeloading, is that people tend to think that, or some people think that somebody else should do all the work and that they get to just come and enjoy the service. And I think some of us feel a little bit that way when we're Zooming into Spokane, but I hope we're making it up in contributions in other ways. Many kinds of online communities, fan communities, travel communities, consumer communities. And one of the really nice things about the internet is what they call the long tail of the internet, in that you can find somebody who's interested in, 1920 stamps from Japan or something. There's people who collect them, but they're not likely to be in your town, and you're not likely to run into them physically. But you can meet them on the internet, and so that's tremendous value that way. As I said, I was an academic and a researcher, and so what we had to do was I had to find some empirical ways to measure these communities. You can't just talk about how wonderful they are. You have to have some evidence. And one of the theoretical models that we developed, we called the community of inquiry model. And this model has come to be, the most popular model in the 21st century. In fact, there's over 20,000 references to this by other researchers, and almost every day I get a thing or two from Google Scholar saying somebody else has noted this work or used this work. And the interesting thing is that it's not just used for measuring and evaluating virtual communities that we designed it for, but it's now used by a lot of teacher education schools to try to say, how do you create an online course? And the essence of it is that if you can get these three presences, social presence, cognitive presence, and teaching presence, and if you can have them all working at a high level, then you will have a quality learning experience. So it was simple, and I think that's why it's become so popular. Is that people, whether you're a teacher or a professional researcher or a scholar or whatever, it has a lot of intuitive, I say like, it's a mnemonic that can help guide you. But of course, academics can't leave a simple thing alone, and there's many enhancements to it. People have tried to add fourth presence to it or fifth presence, but in any case, the original model still is widely used even today. But what we found was that the biggest challenge of those three, and especially teaching presence, remember, it's not teacher presence, it's teaching presence, because we think that many students can teach and do teach other students as well. But we found that creating and sustaining social presence is the most challenging. It's essential for online discussions, and that's where a lot of the knowledge growth comes as people articulate their ideas and argue their ideas. And it leads to engagement, motivation, and a sense of belonging and wanting to come to the class. So as I said, we had to find ways to measure these, and I'm not going to go through all these. But we developed this model on text-based interactions where there wasn't any audio and there certainly wasn't any video. And so people had threaded text discussions. And that was really intoxicating for us as researchers, because for the first time, we had a record of what had actually gone on. So I spent many hours coding transcripts. Often there would be 1,000, 1,200 message interactions in a 13-week course. And so we had to find ways to code them, and then we were worried about coder reliability and well, I won't get into all of those, but that was the challenge. And we had to do this for all three of those presences as well. Now, the nice thing about it is they're using AI to do that these days, and they're also using students. There's questionnaires so that students can get a sense of, or can provide feedback on whether their teaching presence is felt or social presence. And then, of course, we correlate this with grades and other learning outcomes. So switching from that to back a blended model is where I think where we're at. That's what we're doing right now. We have a sanctuary of people, well, a few people, hopefully more in the next service, but we have certainly people online. And what I'm thinking is a model for a lot of our smaller congregations is that we have one sort of a Spokane hub, where at the hub we have a real quality service, and that's what's been attracting me to Spokane. But that you have other people who are spread around the world, and sometimes they're alone, sometimes they're in a face-to-face group. And I can imagine a small congregation that maybe loves to sing together, but they don't have a good preacher. Well, then they would just tee in on the recording from Spokane for the sermon, or for readings, or for any other part. So it gives you that kind of flexibility. It allows you to do time shifting, because you can do it at a time that you want to do it. If you're just bringing in a recording. And it also, of course, is place shifting. You can do it from anywhere in the world. And you can repeat it if it was so much fun the first time. So just a slide on our Zoom community. There's, there's been a group of us from as low as, I think, 4 people to, 24, 30 people maybe have been meeting each and every week during the past year. The group is smaller than the number who attend the services in person, counting both services, or who watch them at any time shifting via the YouTube stream of the service. But we have some very interesting conversations after the service, and I think that most of the people here, well, I guess I'll get some feedback on that afterwards, but conversations are more focused, usually on the sermon, and less personal or superficial than I used to experience in after-service chats inside a church. And we have gotten, over this past year, we've gotten to know each other's ideas but we don't really know that much about our personal backgrounds, our professions, how our kids are doing, and we don't really know too much about the weather, where they are, like you would be able to talk about if you were in a face-to-face environment. But the cost to UUCS is minimal, and the benefits to us Zoomers is, quotes, invaluable. So just ending now, after all this success with the community of worship, the community of inquiry model, COI, as it's commonly referred to, I thought, well, maybe I could reinvent this model and get as much mileage out of it by talking about the community of worship, although the acronym it didn't work out quite as well. It's got a kind of a bovine sense to it. But anyways, what I was thinking was that if we had social presence and we had ministerial presence, again, not necessarily from a minister, but that same thing that gives you that kind of professional support, wise teaching, caring relationships, and we had opportunities for spiritual and for cognitive growth, which is what in the academic world we would have our cognitive, the actual content learning that goes on. And if you can put those three together in the middle of it, you will create a full religious experience. And of course, that's what we're trying to do today. So to conclude, the effective community of worship, it makes effective use of both online and face-to-face communities. And again, those communities might be focused, the face-to-face communities might be in a sanctuary, but they might be in a home as well, or wherever people gather together in order to participate within the larger congregation. And I think the NAUA and UU Spokane are forging blended communities with both quality online and place-based components. So to conclude, communities are essential for human well-being, and they exist both online and in person. And they have real distinct advantages over face-to-face or place-bound communities. They are more ecological and more cost-effective. And I think too of how much it costs us to heat our religious buildings during the wintertime or cool them in the summer when there's often nobody in them. They're much better at time and place shifting so that you can pick up or participate if you're traveling or away, or if you miss the service, you can pick it up later, that sort of thing. They provide opportunity for far-reaching connections and enhanced participation with people you may never have a chance to communicate with. And they support connections in spite of health-related issues. And I'm thinking of when we're not feeling well, or if we have we're housebound, that sort of thing. And of course, as evidenced by COVID, they allow us to continue to build community even in the midst of infectious diseases. But like most things, they have both advantages and disadvantages. And the significant disadvantages of the online community is that they're not the same. And we've had an evolutionary history of having face-to-face interactions in various aggregations of human beings. And these are not the same as that. So sometimes that we grieve the loss of certain components. I know from online educational courses that they take longer to form a good social community. It happens much quicker in a face-to-face environment. And of course, they're technologically dependent. The technology goes out, the community ends, at least for the moment. And they impair, but as I hope it showed with my example of my mom and dad, they do not eliminate affective feelings. And so again, concluding that the best communities are those that use both types of communities to advantage. And so I'm going to end with a poem, or a poem of saying, I guess, by Starhawk, a little paragraph. And I'll read it for you. And she says, "We are longing to go home to some place we've never been, a place half remembered and half envisioned when we can only catch glimpses of from time to time. It's community. Somewhere there are people to whom we can speak with passion without having to having the words catch in our throats. Somewhere, a circle of hands will open to receive us. Eyes will light up as we enter. Community means strength that joins our strength to do the work that needs to be done. Arms to hold us when we falter, a circle of healing, a circle of friends, and somewhere where we can be free. So thank you for your time and attention, and I look forward to a discussion on Zoom, and I hope the talk stimulates some discussion after the sanctuary service as well. So thank you.
Thank you, Terry. It's very interesting. Lots to think about. And so for us in the sanctuary and for all of you streaming and online, we're going to sing a song. Number 108, My Life Flows On, an endless song. You can stand if you like. And here we are. My life flows on in endless song above earth's lamentation. I hear the real, though far off hymn that hails a new creation. Through all the tumult and the strife, I hear the music ringing. It sounds an echo in my soul. How can I keep from singing? What though the tempest round me roars? I know the truth, it liveth. What though the darkness round me close? Songs in the night it giveth. No storm can shake my inmost calm, while to that rock I'm clinging. Since love prevails in heaven and earth, how can I keep from singing? When tyrants tremble as they hear the bells of freedom ringing, when friends rejoice both far and near, how can I keep from singing? To prison cell and dungeon vile, our thoughts to them are winging. When friends by shame are undefiled, how can I keep from singing?
Our benediction is by Barbara Hamilton Holloway. Go now in peace. Deeply regard each other. Truly listen to each other. Speak what each of you must speak. Be ready in any moment to disarm your own heart, and always live as if a realm of love had begun. So be it. Amen. Blessed be. Salam alaikum and shalom.
Shalom Havarim, Shalom Havarim, Shalom, Shalom.